in the Sifra Tzniuta, we had gotten to a certain place. I don't know exactly where to start over here. We're reading the Saruk. If you want, we could start it again. We didn't quite get through it, and that's what I'm going to do here. So he said we're on number Aleph at the very bottom. Let me see if I get down a little bit lower even. Okay, so it says, there we go. So he's already for Farish Marie Saruk. He said, "Zel the Shon of Yom Elokim Ki Nei Hamaymer Hazech B'Yuvach in the Masha Omer Zohar." This is Parshas Bereshis, Pasuk Hazech B'Yomer Elokim Yehi Or. So that's what we're talking about. But here's the V'Yomer Elokim, and then this is now in regards to that. This is what he says. He says, "Ein Sof Boko Ma'avir Delay." The Ein Sof breaks out of its own atmosphere. V'galei Chai Nakuda Yud V'Yud, and it reveals this letter, this Nakuda, this dot, which is the letter Yud. V'hekei Medachai Yud is Pashet B'mash B'Ishtayr, so the Yud leaves from what was left over. In other words, there's something left over, you take the Yud out. Ishtikach or Mehaku Ralza Dahaku Avir Stimo, so lays over this word or. And that's left over from this, he says, from this closed air or atmosphere. Ishtikach Yud, so you find that there's original dot, which is the Yud. Iskale the Basar Iskale Labasar Labasar Alecho Mati below Mati. Now, that's not explained exactly what he means by that. Ubircha Devarim Kachem. Kasha'ala Beritzonach Apashad Yisbarach Shemo. Livrocha Baloma V'locha V'choyim Makum Reiko. So there was no place for the world to be created. Ma Asar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzamtzem Shekinasa Yisbarach L'mala B'Yachol. So he pulls back his Shechina as if to say up above. In other words, I don't know, away from, I guess. Al derek she'am b'chazal, like the rabbi said, tzamsem shekinasach bein badi Aaron. So from the horns of the Aaron, the Shekhinah left that place. K'dei l'haniach makom panu, in order to leave a place that was necessary bar olamos. So it's the Shekhinah that left, which is the lowest part, which is the Malchus part. So then there's a place, an empty space that remains there. And so he says, Hachalo Anishar Nikra Avira Kadimos Dimos. So there is a place which is called the first atmosphere, the first air. So the worlds cannot exist within that original, I'm calling it atmosphere. Logodol Dakusa, because it's so small, V'rav Oro, and the tremendous might of the, I guess small does not mean dark, it means thin or transparent, almost non-existent. Logodol Dakusa V'rav Oro, and with such a tremendous amount of this light of nothingness. Ramos Ein Sof Yisbarach Yud Achrona Shel He Achrona. So he says there's a remez to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu by the Yud Achrona Shel He Achrona Shel Shem Sag. Now this whole idea about the Shem Sag that he has here is coming out of the Sag is a lashon that's the secondary part. It's not Av, it's Sag. So some development from Sag comes out, and if you look at it, like I said yesterday, vertically, the last letter is going to be the Yud. Either way, it's the last letter is the Yud. Shechoy beregel Shekinah, which was on the leg, regel of the Shekhinah. Shetera v'tibaka ba'osach b'viva kadimah, it breaks out la'asel or av gsas, to thicken the light a little bit, to make it more physical. So then it goes down, it's made, it goes down, and it breaks out, I'm having a little trouble seeing it. Just a second. He says, abo, it, so there's a little bit of light that is seen. I guess he meant is revealed a little bit of the light that is more thickened as it breaks out. So he says that it makes a ball shape. And this is this letter Yud, this Nikuda that he's talking about. I guess that's probably a very big secret. What we said that the Ein Sof Baruch Hu withdraws around the dot. Now over here he comes and he tells us how to know exactly what to do with it, but he says that that dot is the last letter Yud of the name Sag. So let's go on. I'm trying to think. Sag must represents the beginning of the physicalization of this light. Because Shechav Ein Sof Banko B'Chaviv as he breaks out like Yud Achrona Shel Shem Sag. Oznis Pasha V'Nistalik the Kuda Acha Shehi Yud. Then you see what happens is that the Yud spreads out. I think I lost him here. He's coming back. God willing. There he goes. Okay. Oh, turn the speaker on. There. Turn the speaker on. There you go. Okay. So he says, so now we see that the original Nakuda that's talked about in the first part of the Eitz Chaim, it comes out of this name Sag. It's the last of the Hey Yud. It's that Yud at the very end of Sag, which I guess is a physicalization. So he said the Nakuda Acha Shehi Yud Mina Osius Avir. So you have two things. You have the last Yud, and then you have the Yud that comes out of the word Avir. So I guess it's probably the same thing. V'zos ha'yud nispashet l'mata b'tihuro. So it goes down into this place, which he says is ball shaped, called the tihuro. Now what he says, the Yud, that's the Yud. Let's call it the dot. It's the Yud, the dot of the Yud. Of the Nikwas Yud Shel Arashimo. So this got another name. It's called the Yud of the stamp, or it has an impression of what's up above it, I guess. Because if you say, the Yud of Sag, the final Yud, that is really the Malchus of it. It's an aspect of the Malchus of it, because the final Hey, usually would refer in its, to Yud K, Vav K. That K right there in a Milu is K Yud. So he says a Nick was Yud Shel Rishimo. So the Rishimo was an impression left from the original Or. Hilonis Pasha Rock or a Kadmon Shel Raviras, because the only thing that spreads from here is the original light Shel Virazeh, called Osaho or Nignas the Osi Levoka the Isis. I guess he means to say the only part that's mispashet is the Yud itself. But the rest of it remains as an organus, the voka, the isach, besod, aleph base, or the isbere, the isganiz, the basic, bris kadisha. Another interesting phrase. Exactly what to do with, I don't know. He says, once again, the phrase is besod, the aleph base, and then it says, or the isbere, which is I guess Aleph base means the beginning of the alphabet. He says, besod Aleph base, or the Isbriv Iskaniz Bris Kadisha, and this is all hidden in the Holy Bris, which refers to Yisod, but I'm not sure what he means. Or shall Avira Zeh, the Isbriv Iskaniz, or so we just said, be Yisod Anikra Bris Kadisha. Gavar Yudato Hishesh Achativ Racha Bechuchu Babina. So we understand that he says the Tiru is Bina, is the Hey Rishona. So he says that's the Hey Rishona Shel Shem B'Ravavacha Miyuchas of the Bina, which is related to Bina, the first Hey, and the Yud K Vav K is Bina. Now, what happened over here to the final Yud that came out of the name Sag? V'Nimsa Shechatiru, so he said, but that's the Tiru, is the aspect of Bina here. Nimsa shachatihi tiruhu b'shuchuchu b'sod hey ka'amor. he says, Hu bein train Yudin Elo, it's in between these two Yudin. Now let's see what he's talking about. He says there's a Yud at the beginning, which is the word, for the beginning of the word Yehi. So he says the Sod Yehi, or let there be light. Kolomer Hayud Rishon Milas Yehi is the first Yud. Hainu Hayud Achrona Shel Shem Sag. So now he's pinning it on our phrase Yehi. He says, let me read it again. He's Kolomer Hayud Rishona. The word Yehi, that is actually the last letter of Sag, Al Shem Shag, Hachufefes and Marchefes al Atihro, which is, he says, which surrounds, once again, he says the name Sag surrounds this area called Tihro. Behind it, what does that mean? So this is this place, this hay, the second hay represents the Tihuro. So in terms of the name Sag, it would be the Hey Yud, the original Hey Yud. So the final Yud, he says, let me get this lined up. There it is. A little bit more. So he says, so he says, Hainu Hayud Shal B'Shima the Ispashad and Istalik Mina Osius Avir. So he says once again, he says the final Yud. So let me just go over this again. He said the first Yud of Yehi represents Bina. So what kind of Bina, I don't know, but Bina is like more of a congealing of something, I guess. So he says that Ispasha v'nistalik min osius avir v'nishar or, and remains light. Min ha'or shenishar v'avir v'nispasha zos yud, as the yud, I guess, breaks out and starts to spread out into more physicality, then you remain, the or remains behind of the yud. Now this, I guess this is actually the secret of where it says the or haganos, the hidden light. You're really listening to exactly how the light becomes hidden, because what is revealed through this Bina is the mother, I guess, so to speak, and then this final Yud comes out. Yud Shel Harishimo, then it's called by this name. It's the Yud of the remnant. Behind or Shenizkar B'Pasuk Acher Milas Yehi. So the Yehi or, that's the or. Yehi leaves behind an or. That's the way I think I understand it, but let's go on. So it says, V'tzarech l'das, you have to know like this. Sha'achar shenishaver ha'tihiro v'nikdesera b'chayud shal rishimo. So then after the ball shape comes about, which is the hero, then is the entrance of this yud shal rishimo. That it's the yud, which is the leftover part. That's what he means. I think it's leftover, I think works over here. It's left over from the word avir. And it clings to the yud of the name Sag. And it makes both of them into one, what's the word? Which is like the vav. So you have from that yud which came out of Sag, then you're making this concept of a line. V'nimsa kasha also achakach yud achrona shel shem Sag. So now we say, what happens to it? It goes up, the yud of the name Sag. Achashinistalko minati rochakadei la'alos the sharsha, in order to go back after it makes. He says after achashinistalko minatiro, it leaves the tiru. Kadei la'alos the sharsha, to go back to the avir state. V'choises zosa a yud shal abrishimo devuka ba memela. But along the way, you see that it's clinging. This yud, which is the yud of the rishimo, I guess, he says, which is clinging to ba, to it. I assume he meant the final yud of the name Sag. Limsa shechavav na'asis min shnei yudim. So now we say that the vav, that is, which made from these two yudin, elu, v'ol l'malo, he ma'al osius yehi, it's up above the letters yud ke yud, v'hainu, the ka'amr pasuk achar kach v'yehi, the os vav he al yehi. So he says that the vav in the second one really refers to the spread, I guess, of this light. I'm not sure what he meant, so we'll read it one more time. He says vayehi, so the or vav hu al hey, so al yehi. So he says it's on the yehi. I'm not sure what that meant, or above it. Now let's go back to where it says now we didn't have anything that told us that it was going back to its root. So the yud that was, which is the, I guess, is the impression of what was originally there. So what he's describing is that there's something left over from the fact that the yud originally comes in, that's the dot, but then it goes back into the avir again. What's left over from it is a rishimo. It's the vukaba memela, so it's clinging onto it. I'm not sure what the memela part means. Nimsa shechavav na'asim in ashnei yudin, the vav that's made out of the two yudin, elu, v'alu lamala, which go back, al osius yehi. I'm not sure I got this right. Behind it, the ka'amra b'pasuk achakach v'yehi, the os vav he al yehi. It's on the yehi. So then the next letter is going to come vayehi. O milas or shenizgar achar milas vayehi. So the word or vayehi, or hainu or ha-keser. So now we're coming to something else. We're coming to the light of keser, shenishava b'socha tehiro, which is created inside of this ball shape, which is called tehiro. Shegavor yudata she'achar Yud Akrona Shel Shem Sag Nitrida Min Os Hakaf. It's what is this? Nitrida Min Os Hakaf Me Alpha Beta the Aleph Lamed base Mem. I do not know this. I'm just listening to it. I don't know what he means. He says again, the words are Hainu or hakeser shenishava b'socha tehira, which comes about in the midst of this. I guess it means the empty space, which is called tehiro. Shekavar yudat she'achar shechar yud achrona shel shem sag nitrida mina os. It comes down, I guess, from the letter, which is from the os hakaf, from the letter kaf. Which letter kaf develops out of this concept of the alta base of the alphabet, the kale bum, which is alad lameth, and then base goes with the mem, and you build it that way. Why we do this, I'm not sure. But tifcha hakaf. So then he says that the kaf strikes al panach v'shel yud. It strikes. Where this coming from, I don't know. So it needs a lot of background on this. So he says it strikes al panach shel yud, on the face of the yud, ka'asher v'chenispashid b'lamudim, and he says b'limudi atzilos, again another phrase. I'm not sure what he means. Oz nafel min a yud shel sag ha-yud shel rishimo shechos devukabo. So the two yuds were clinging together, and now one of them, the nafel min a yud, the yud of sag, this yud, which is the yud of the rishimo, separates. He says it falls off. He said, what is the word? He says oz nafel. So he says it falls off. V'na'asa vav ketia, makes a ketia. V'hi havav ketia shall v'ha'ish Moshe Anav Ma'od. I didn't look up the word to Ketia, Keta. It's like I guess a portion of that. For Ha'ish Moshe Anav Ma'od, Misha Osha was extremely humble. Kamo Shehevira Hazkani Ein Sham, so there's something over there in the Hazkani. Az Chazra Yud Achrona Shel Shem Sag. So then what happens then? The Yud Achrona, the same Shab, comes back. Ubaka besoch avir stimo, and it breaks out of that avir stimo zeh. V'nik nesera b'tesocha tehira v'ha'ira or yoser av, and it breaks out. It comes back in to the tehiro, and it causes a light to be more thick at that point, more physical. She'osa ha'or she'choya kavar ba'avir because the original light that was in the Avir, Nignaz the Asi the Vocal more, it's going to be hidden away until the future world. It has 620 amudim convenient kasser, like the gematria of kasser. Kasser is 620. So what we get exactly here, I'm not sure. He said, "V'zeho or ha'av bo the tarach amudim." So he says 620 columns convenient kasser. V'chem tarach amudi Rabbi Orsha hevira v'sefer Rabbi here that apparently was brought over here in the sefer Rabbi here, b'parshas Bereshis b'defus Krimona. So this is originally brought over there. I'm not sure how it goes. But the zecher v'nikra or ha'av chazer b'hiskabsos atarach amudim. So let's read again. He says, v'lezeh. Okay, we got it back. So we're up at the top of this last column, and he says, "B'parshas Bereshis is b'defus Krimona." He said, "V'lezer v'nikraho or ha'av chazer b'hiskabsus ha'tara." The 620 amudim, as the gathered together, the 620 columns, b'socho kasser. So all of these columns are all put together, 620 of them. And they make the concept of kasser. So that's the origin. V'nimsa shebekasser kol yushnei mini or. So now you have two different types of light in the kasser. V'na'as echad, and they become together and they make one. Aleph, he says, Aleph meha avir hakadmor b'shechad avir haganus. One, I guess, is from the original avir hakadmon. Shal avir haganus, of the ear of that is the original light that was left over as a result of the removal of the yud, because the kesser pours out from the final yud of the name sag, so he wants to say that that's the concept of this original light. Let me just use his words again. He says, Choyin nishar bo, so that he means the final yud that was remained over there. Lachluch is some moisture or some hint, so call it lachluch, some moisture shall or avira kademo of the original avira. That's what makes it a remnant, I guess. Anyway, shagavarav yadash should call makam shetishrach kedusha. So at every place where you see the kedusha dwell. Gam ki akresh nistalach v'nisalach, even that it remains even after ki akresh nistalach, that it left v'tisala and returned back to its original place. Yeshar sham roshem kedusha, there will remain over there an impression, that is the leftover, or not the left. There's different ways of saying this. Is the leftover refers to the or the leftover refers to the remnant. That's the right word. Yisrisha Rosham, a remnant kedusha of kedusha, which is the lachluchas he was talking about, that's left over from the original avir. So this is now the thicker part of the light, adkan. So he said, Hakadama befirish maris Saruk l'mayim b'chashul v'neinu. That's the end of that. But once again, he had ideas in there that I'm not familiar with, and we'll find out as we go along. So this is Baruch Fleischman, so let's go to the next shir.